the lane, 15, 10, touchdown Chargers!
What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. As always, joined by Matt Money Smith. Excuse my white background here as I move and get settled into this new office. But as Buddy alluded to, my Wi-Fi is much better, so I think that's the win of the day. We're going to get into what Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack had to say during day one of OTAs. Also, a lot of new items on the agenda with regards to the owners' meetings. But Money, the lead of the week is that Austin Ekeler is coming back to the Chargers this year. And I feel like over the last several months, we've spent a lot of time wondering if that was going to be the case. I think there were certain times where we thought that it was not going to be the case. But Austin is going to be in powder blue this year, and I think that's a good thing for all involved.
I feel like it's right in step. I'm by no means trying to pat ourselves on the back here, but it's right in step with what we've been talking about for, since this whole thing emerged. It seemed like, and it's weird to talk in these sort of numbers as a layperson walking around the United States, but we said, look, you add $2 million and this probably gets done. I thought maybe it would be tack on a little extra and then add a year, a mutual option. So on that front, I got it wrong a little bit, but I just assumed, sort of knowing the history of the two parties and how this conversation had been working over the last couple of years and what they had been trying to do with Austin and perhaps what he was receptive to and what his agent was resistant to, I figured this was going to be the resolution, that we appreciate you. Take these millions of dollars. And I know they're incentives, but when you look at them, they're easily attainable incentives based on what Austin has done the last couple of years. The biggest one is total yards. It's, I think, 1,100. He's just been way past that the last 2 years, and 10 touchdowns, and he's been way past that the last 2 years. So those should be attainable. He should get all 1.75 or $2 million of the incentives, and that's a win for him. Instead of 6.5, you make $8.5 million, and then if things are going great, you let him test the market. And if there's something more out there, good for him. You earned it. Go get it. And if there's not, then I would assume they'd gladly welcome him back on a team-friendly and sort of deal that he would be comfortable with.
I think this is an example of just the respect level that the Chargers have for Austin Ekeler, because they gave him a deal. First of all, they brought him into camp, and he made the team, and he earned that. But when Melvin Gordon's deal went awry and Austin kind of took the reins, they paid Austin, right? And he over-delivered, frankly, on that contract. And now they're at a point where the running back market is what it is. I think Austin found that out over the last couple of months. And the Chargers said, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. So Tom Pelissero reported this. This is just the specifics of the incentives. Up to $1 million for total yards, tiers 1,100 to 1,600. He's going to get that, no problem. $600K for touchdowns, 10 to 16. He's exceeded that each of the last 2 years.
He'll get that.
$150K for the Pro Bowl. That's the one thing that's kind of eluded Austin. Watch him get the Pro Bowl this year. He gets $150K, right? So
right.
This is nice for Austin, and it allows us to now kind of settle down and look at how Austin is going to fit into this Kellen Moore offense. And I think there was so much uncertainty about the running back position money during the draft. We're talking about Bijan Robinson and maybe some other guys in the second or the third round. Now we know Austin is going to come back. He's going to get the lion's share of the touches in that backfield. And you hope that Joshua Kelly or Isaiah Spiller or somebody can really establish himself as that number 2 running back. But Kellen Moore, and seeing what he did with Tony Pollard, Austin has to be excited.
No doubt. And the key was, this is such a great exercise for people to apply to their own situations. Money is tricky. You can never let it get personal. Business is business. The parent is always going to try to get the better end of the deal, and the child, if you want to put it in those terms, or the employer and the employer, are always going to try to get the best deal they can, regardless of how the other side feels. And you just have to go into a negotiation understanding that. It's why people tell you to never take things personal. If you are in a position to have an agent or a lawyer to negotiate those deals for you, a lot of that isn't just because they understand the complexities of a contract, but they also prevent it from being personal. So you're not sitting across the desk with someone that's telling you you're not worth what you think you're worth, and they're not telling you that because you're not worth it. They may be telling you that because they want to save some money. It's what they do. They have a bottom line, and you have a thirst for as much as you can earn, and that's where things get tricky. So I was happy to see that both sides Melvin made it personal when and then it got personal for Tom and the Chargers because they were like, wait a minute, we just offered you all this money. This is one of the richest running back contracts, and it's not good enough. And so they took it personal, and then Melvin took it personal, and a divorce was inevitable. And you saw how that played out, and it's unfortunate because Melvin and Austin made a great tandem. The power back that Melvin was, the do everything, can flex out wide, third down and line up in the slot and split backfield with one guy as a receiving because Melvin could catch the ball too. And it's unfortunate that got sidetracked because it got personal. So I commend both sides for not making it as such. For Tom to say, if you want to go explore the market and find a trade, we understand. Go make as much as you can. And for Austin to say, I appreciate them. They paid me when they didn't have to, and I'm just trying to maximize my playing career and my earning potential, and this is how you come to this sort of resolution. You were going to make $6.5 million. Now it's likely you're going to make $8.5 million, and that's great. That's a win. At 28 years old, as a running back, $8.5 million is a win in the NFL. Fair or not, it's the reality of what it is. You are paid what the market will pay you. Hopefully, I would love to see Austin have a huge year. You know him. You know Ekler. He's one of our favorite guys. He's a great dude. He's great with the media. He's great with the fans. He busts his tail to be in shape every year. He does not cut any corners. He plays through pain. He plays through injury. He's everything you'd want in a player. It's just the market. You've got to make two defensive ends, a left tackle, a right tackle, a quarterback, wide receivers. You've got to make all those pieces fit to field the most competitive team possible. And it goes back to what we said repeatedly through this whole free agent and draft process, Chris. It seems like a lot of money, $230 million or whatever that cap number is. It gets real tricky when you're in this phase, and Bryce Callahan's out there and Leonard Floyd is out there, and you've got players out there that you would love to find a value on. That's where all of this gets real tricky, and every $500,000 to $1 million in $250 million salary cap begins to take on added significance.
I think the first step in the good faith was Tom and company allowing Austin to see what was out there and allowing his agent to talk to other teams. And then when you see how free agents shook out, you see what Miles Sanders got with the Panthers. You see guys who are still, frankly, on the sideline, like Kareem Hunt and Zeke Elliott. And there's countless guys that are out there because the running back position is what it is right now. So the fact that he's back, I think fans should be very, very excited about the fact that Austin is going to be in Kellen Moore's offense. And I looked at Tony Pollard's numbers because that's the best comparison I can really throw out at this point, because Kellen Moore and the year that Tony Pollard had, he had over 1,300 yards from scrimmage. He only caught 39 balls, but his yards per reception, 9.5 a pop. He had 1,000 rushing yards, and he had 12 total touchdowns. So first of all, that's going to be in line with all those incentives. And second, I want to kind of throw this to you, Money, because Austin's yards per reception were low last year because of the fact that he caught 101 balls. He had 127 targets.
Yeah.
When you see Quentin Johnston being drafted and Joshua Palmer and Mike and Keenan and Gerald Everett, it seems to me that they want to move towards getting the ball down the field and maybe limiting some of those check down throws to Austin. So I guess I ask you, how do you think Austin's year is going to look different in comparison to maybe the last couple of years where he was relied upon so heavily?
Well, for me, the one thing you really have to pay attention to is Justin Herbert and level of trust. And you think about Keenan on third down, you think about when things break down or maybe that pass isn't open down the field, how there is an implicit trust there for Austin to catch the ball behind the line of scrimmage and instead of losing 3 yards, turn in a 2nd and 10 into a 3rd and 6 or a 3rd and 5. So the one great thing about Justin and what you typically see from big-armed quarterbacks, and to me, Aaron Rodgers is one of the most guilty parties of this. And even though he is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game, he's just always looking for that kill shot. He rarely will take that check down, and it gets his team in a lot of trouble. And you especially have seen that in high-leverage games against really good defenses, is his just stubbornness and refusal to take a profit. You can't go broke taking a profit. And he just refuses to do that. One of the great things about Herbert, and one of the reasons why he separated himself as one of these physical specimens with a giant hose that can push it downfield, is because he's willing to do that. He has the processor. He has the ability to recognize, oh, this is a good play. Yes, I've got the cannon to push it 50 yards down the field, and it's maybe a 20 to 30% success rate, but this is 100%. I know Austin. I'm going to get the ball in his hands, and we're going to go from 2nd and 10 to 3rd and 4. Now I can open up a variety, myriad possibilities on 3rd and 4 that I can on 3rd and 10. So I still think there's a lot of value, even though we feel like Kellen Moore is going to push the ball downfield more, is going to have – we all think it's going to be a better-looking offense. You know, and that's just based on – what he had. But I thought Kellen made a good point. He's like, look, the offense I had in Dallas was built for the team I had in Dallas. Remember he brought up the 2 tight ends when they said, were you surprised Chargers didn't draft the tight end? He said, well, the offense in Dallas looked like that because we had 2 tight ends. Yeah, and that's what we were using. Yeah, so, when you come here with Mike and Keenan and now Quentin Johnston with Josh Palmer, and if Guyton gets back and Gerald Everett, and if you have 2 backs in the backfield, if you're going to play Josh and Austin at the same time or Spiller and Austin at the same, whatever it may be. And this team could look different. June 1st with all those cuts and with teams having new money available or trying to trim some salary because it's post June 1st and you can save a little bit of money on dead cap and that sort of stuff. Who knows what it's going to look like. But the one thing I keep going back to, Chris, is we know how valuable Austin is and what he is capable of doing. I said it repeatedly. I have never seen someone turn more what should have been negative plays even into minimal positive plays. How many times Austin was dead to rights behind the line of scrimmage and it should have been a 2nd and 13 and instead it's 2nd and 8. He's so good at that. And anytime Justin Herbert had a breakdown in the backfield, that's the guy he was looking for. Much like on 3rd down, he's looking for 13. And much like those shot plays, he's looking for Mike Williams. So that's going to continue regardless of what offense is installed.
Think about the differences going into 2023, and you hope, all health being the number one priority here. Rashawn Slater will be back at left tackle. That's going to help Austin. You add Quentin Johnston, right? Mike and Keenan were both hurt at different parts of the year last year. So when you have your full complement of weapons, and by the way, you have Kellen Moore calling the plays now, I think all of that is going to kind of work in Austin's favor and obviously the offense's favor. And I think you just made a great point about Austin's just reliability. Justin trusts him. I remember the game in Tennessee where Austin was out wide, caught a deep ball late in the 4th quarter. Like, you can use Austin all over the field. You drafted Quentin Johnston because of the size and speed. Joshua Palmer in year 3. We know what Keenan and Mike are capable of. Gerald Everett, Jalen Guyton coming back, hopefully full strength and his speed. So all of that being said, you have Justin Herbert at the controls. And I think Justin having the familiarity, just another year with all of these guys, save for Quentin, that's just going to bode well, I think, in general for the offense. So you make a great point about, too, it's not this one size fits all. Kellen's going to cater to the personnel on this Chargers team. Last year, they really relied on Pollard and Zeke, just smashing the ball. They didn't have Amari Cooper last year. CeeDee Lamb was the featured guy on the outside. We talked about Schultz. So he's going to have a whole new arsenal of weapons to work with, and I'm really excited to see what he does with it. And that's why people are so excited about OTAs and who's out there and who's not. I heard some of the press asking, where was Mike or where was Palmer? And, Coach Staley doesn't have to answer those questions right now. He's like, listen, they're all getting ready. But it's funny that we're in May and everybody is kind of like full tilt ready for September.
Yeah, the last thing I'll add on Austin, and I know there's a lot of stuff to get to with OTAs underway and all that, but is don't forget he's in a contract year. This is someone who wanted to get paid $16 million a year like Christian McCaffrey's getting paid. Pointing to his production, pointing to his touchdown totals. This is what I want. This is what I believe I'm worth. And he's going to be motivated because he's got one more crack at this. He's turning 28 this year. He's got a shot for a team that feels like they're close and maybe has some cap room and has a quarterback on a rookie deal. Let's say, which the Chargers technically still will be on a rookie deal, but there will be teams out there that could say, okay, look, we can afford to do this. We got a quarterback who's making $4 million a year instead of $45 million a year. Let's go give this guy 2-3 years, $30 million, 2 years, $20 million to come in here and be that last piece for us. So no doubt he knows that. His agent knows that. So you're going to have a supremely motivated, and we know, again, I'll repeat it. I don't want to keep talking in circles, so I'll just close it with this. We know how hard he works. We know how he refused to go down in first contact. We know the production he's capable of, and now he's got $2 million in incentives, not to mention a free agent walk year to motivate him. I suspect Austin is going to have a sensational year. He's going to be worth every penny. He's going to be worth every penny of those incentives, and I will not be the least bit surprised to see him lead the league in touchdowns, lead the league in receptions by a running back, receiving yards by a running back, and post a 4 to 4.5 yard per carry average. That will not surprise me. I would be surprised if he didn't hit those numbers.
And we don't have to talk about it anymore, right? It's before Memorial Day.
Settled.
It's done, right? Austin's coming back, and it should be exciting for Chargers fans. Two guys who spoke earlier this week, Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. And this was the tandem a year ago, Money. We were just salivating at seeing those guys on the field together for a long period of time. Didn't work out that way. Khalil did stay on the field, but Joey had some injury issues, and we didn't really get to see Joey and Khalil, I think, how everybody envisioned it in their heads. So both of those guys back. Joey, it's not something he typically does in terms of OTAs. I think he came last year, but he's got a pretty strict regimen with his brother down in Florida. He said that he was asked by some coaches to come, and he didn't want to let Khalil down. So he showed up in Costa Mesa, and he had about a 13-minute presser. Joey is always entertaining.
He's great.
What did you take from what he had to say?
Well, going back to your initial point, Chris, just look at the opener. Remember the opener? I pulled the box score right here. You've got 4.5 combined sacks, 4 combined tackles for loss, 6 combined quarterback hits. That was Bosa and Khalil Mack against a so-so offensive line of the Raiders in the season opener. You go to the next week against Kansas City, and both of them continued as they were both on the field. Joey with a tackle for loss and 2 quarterback hits. Khalil Mack with a sack, a tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit. That's what we had those first 2 weeks before the injury occurred. So I thought Joey made a really good point. And that is, and it was good to hear him say it because we love Joey. He's great. He's got a dry sense of humor. He can be, at times he can sort of be aloof, but it seems as though it's orchestrated. It's part of the personality. But I thought he was very sincere in saying, I came here because Khalil's here. Normally I'm doing what I do with Nick and my dad down in Florida, and we all know Joey comes into camp ready to go. But he specifically said, in not so many words, I owe it to this guy. We were supposed to do some great things last year, and I was gone after week 3. And he, at 32 years old, went out there week after week, every single play, busting his tail. And again, paraphrasing or maybe inferring what he meant to say, he let him down. I let this team down. I let Khalil down, and I owe it to him if he's going to be here to be here. And that's encouraging. It's OTAs. They're walking around. There's not a whole lot going on, but knowing Joey prefers to be in Florida with his dad and with his brother Nick, and that's how they like to get ready for the season, to step away from that a week early, to get back out here, just to acknowledge, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you did last year. Let's do what we started. Let's finish what we started last year and try to stay out there for a full season and get after it.
Joey did not want to talk about the playoff game or the past. Really kind of want to put you forward. And, I don't blame him either.
It's a nightmare for him.
It was a nightmare for him that night in Jacksonville, really for the entire defense, but Joey specifically down the stretch.
Especially, yeah.
But you go to that week 1 game, man. Khalil, I think he hit 3 of those 4.5 sacks, if I'm not mistaken.
He did.
So just think when Joey leaves the lineup, how much of the focal point is on Khalil Mack and just stopping him. We didn't get to see it, unfortunately. I think drafting Thule and Rumph in year 3, I think that's encouraging to have those guys behind Bosa and Mack. But I ask you, a year older, both of these guys, Joey going into his 8th season,
yeah.
Khalil, you mentioned 32 plus. What are you expecting from those guys? Should we expect this dominance from weeks 1 to 17, or do we have to taper expectations a bit based on injury history and just the fact that really this is a violent sport, right? And you get 17 weeks. Yeah. I don't know if you can rely on 2 All-Pros, Pro Bowlers staying healthy the entire season.
What I would love to see, and I had hoped to see it last year, and we just did not see it enough. I look at those first 4 weeks, and we've talked about it, Chris, that this team has got to put teams away. They've got to be able, when you've got those guys at their ages with Joey's injury history, Khalil now a full year removed from pretty serious back injury in Chicago that final year. I think it was a back injury or maybe it was a shoulder injury, whatever it was. It kept him out for a healthy portion of the year in 2021. Put these teams away. Get up, pour it on, and let these guys rest in 4th quarters at Tennessee, at Minnesota, Raiders at home. That's something they failed to do last year. Games they would ultimately win, but there were just far too few of those games where they got up big early and just allowed teams to hang around. The Houston game comes to mind. They're up big, and then they just let them creep back into the game instead of being able to get a bunch of rest. Same with Cleveland. They go down early, and it's like, what are we doing? Like that to me is the next step in the evolution. If they're going to win a Super Bowl, they got to start dominating teams and resting guys. You got a lot of older players on this team now, in Keenan, in Joey, in Khalil. Derwin tends to get nicked up throughout the course of the year because of how aggressive and violent a brand of football he plays. That's something that I want to see because I don't think there's any way around it. If you continue to play like the Chargers have, these close games that come down to the final possession or the final 4 or 5 minutes of a quarter, it's just inevitable. Guys are playing too many snaps.
Yeah,
it's not a deep defensive line. We're already talking about a 20-year-old rookie as being the 3rd edge rusher, unless they can find something out there on the free agent market. If Van Noy comes back, if Leonard Floyd's a reality, you're talking about a 20-year-old rookie being the number 1 guy behind Joey or Khalil when each of them want a breather for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. That's a lot to ask. So the best way to go about that is to go up 3 touchdowns in the 4th quarter so they don't have to be out there and they can get some rest.
Yeah. Well, when you put it like that, just where were you when you were 20? Not the primary backup to Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa, right? Like
right.
I think Thule's gonna be excellent. I really do. Khalil said he's super quiet, but I think he's gonna be excellent. Derek Ansley said he's wise beyond his years, but at the same time, I do think
he's 20.
He's 20 years old. Bring in another edge rusher, whether it's a guy like Floyd or Van Noy or whoever's out there at this point that they think makes sense is good. Nick Williams being added to the rotation, just another body across the defensive line. I think that's encouraging. But I don't think they're done at the edge position. I agree with you. I think that there needs to be maybe another addition there, just because you can't fully rely on guys who are older if you don't put teams away. And like Philly is the perfect example last year. They put teams away, man, and they got to move on to the next game. Chargers need to learn how to win and do those types of things. And somebody asked Joey about just the history of the team and big moments and coming up short in big moments. And he said this is a collective effort. Everybody has to talk about it and believe that this is the team that can get over the hump. So hopefully they do that.
Yeah, the one thing that. And I think we all know how much respect we have for the front office, the incredible job they've done year after year in building this team, hitting on draft picks and finding undrafted free agents that contribute, or late round picks. Jamari Sawyer. We've been talking about Austin Ekeler. We're going to get into the safeties, I'm sure, a little bit. Raheem Lane and what he was able to do special teams wise and getting out there for some snaps. They tend to find it every year, but if I am, just going to try to play it straight and be a little bit critical, I just love to see them be, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, if creative is the right word, but I just want to see them sort of get a little more aggressive and get after it. When you see Jeffrey Okudah getting traded for a fifth, DeAndre Swift getting traded for a fifth or a sixth, whatever it is, I want to see them get in on those deals. Get after it a little bit, like some of these teams that have these Super Bowl designs, and say, fifth round pick would be nice, and it'd be $200,000, say perhaps likely special teamer who could work his way into a rotation. But that's DeAndre Swift. That's a dude that's a potential 1,000-yard back. That's a full-service 3-down back that played really well last year when he was on the field. Jeff Okudah was a number 3 overall pick that just had to deal with serious injuries, in Detroit, and couldn't quite get past it. And sort of the two sides just needed a divorce in order to try to get healthier. When I look out on the free agent market and I see Yannick Ngakoue and Leonard Floyd and Marcus Peters, take a flyer on it. Why not? If Frank Clark, figure out a way to get creative, convert some salary to signing bonus. Let's get these guys in here. If you really are chasing a Super Bowl, bring Bryce Callahan back. Go get John Johnson. That's what I'm waiting for. That to me is the next step of recognizing this is our window. Our window is right now, and we have got to push all of our chips into the middle. These aren't development inhibitors. These are legitimate rotation players that can help us win. Now, I say that, and I understand there are two sides. Those players may say, and Tom may have already called and said, "Wait, Leonard, we'd love to have you. We've got $2.5 million," and him saying, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna sit this one out. I'll wait to see if somebody goes down in training camp, and if I can get myself $5 million instead of 2.5, which is fine, and that's understandable. But I think just overall, some of the trades that happen, Denzel Mims is a guy that we talked about forever. Just go pluck that guy for a fifth or a sixth rounder. You look at the receivers they've signed, the receivers they've drafted. That guy's not going to be on that Jets team. He's in the last year of his rookie deal. I get that. Go get him. Yeah. Go get him. Take a flyer on him. Trade a 7th-round pick. Trade a 6th-round pick for him, and just go get him and see if that's somebody else to add to the mix to just get more vertical with this team. That's the sort of stuff I'm waiting to see and would love to see from this front office with some of the players that are available, specifically along that defensive line. Yeah. Because and that's sort of what spurred it, Chris, is just thinking about, you've got Bosa, Khalil Mack, and the next guy behind him is Tuli Tuipulotu, a 20-year-old that you just drafted. That's got to get resolved. Yeah. There has got to be some sort of, something has got to be sorted out there, and it needs to happen probably a little bit sooner than later.
I think that they, you go back to the last couple of years, I think that we've started to see signs of them going for it. When you sign Corey Linsley, the best center in football, you're going for it. When you sign J.C. Jackson to that record money, they were going for it last year. You trade for Khalil Mack. You hope that the fruits of some of those decisions will bear this year, with JC coming back week 1, with Khalil being able to operate as Khalil Mack with Joey Bosa on the other side. Corey has been a rock. He had some injuries. He got banged up a little bit this year, but Corey's at the top of his game.
I guess you know what, Chris. That's why maybe aggressive isn't the right word. Because you're right. Yeah, they have been aggressive. They made Corey the highest paid center. They traded a 2nd rounder for Khalil.
Continuing to push.
I think what I'm getting to is creative.
Yes.
Just pick up the phone and let's start calling around. Let's look at some of these rosters and figure out, where is there excess? Where might we be on the margins? Where can we get creative on the margins? To me, the Eagles plucking DeAndre Swift the second they recognize they signed Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs is drafted. Hey, boom, let's call. What are you doing with Swift? What do you got? A 5th rounder. Great, let's go.
Rashad Penny.
Okuda's available.
Signing Rashad Penny is another.
Rashad Penny.
Like
100%.
Doing those little things. They traded for A.J. Brown the year before. I think just continuing to keep
Get creative.
Your foot on the gas, right, throughout the year too. You just go back to the Rams a couple of years ago when they traded for Von Miller and Odell Beckham, and the first 3 weeks you're like, uh-oh, is this going to backfire? And then they hit their stride and they won a Super Bowl.
Right.
So I think that they have so much talent on this team. Money, I'm 100% with you. Get creative. Say, hey, we need that third edge rusher that's a veteran to protect ourselves in case Joey or Khalil goes down and has to miss some time. I think they did that at the wide receiver position with Quentin and having Keenan and Mike there and seeing Josh Palmer's development. Corner, the way that Zion came on last year and Michael Davis came on, if you get J.C. Jackson back and you bring Bryce Callahan, all of a sudden you're cooking in the secondary. We know what Derwin is. We talked a lot in depth about the safety position last week with Jaleel about Gilman and just how JT Woods needs to come on in year 3.
Yeah.
But there are things to be done, right? And who knows if it's another running back. If Zeke Elliott is there and Kellen Moore knows him and he ain't going to cost much, I mean, who knows? Bring another dude in. Get creative and stay aggressive. I think that's kind of the motto this year, because it's not just about getting to the wild card round. You have to win a couple of games this year in the playoffs.
No doubt. Team's ready to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's just, and you have to, the front office has to respond to that.
Yeah.
If you're getting better, you're getting worse. Very few teams plateau because everything around you is changing. Are the Chiefs getting better? Are they getting worse? Are the Broncos getting better? Getting worse? Are the Raiders getting better? Are they getting worse? Are you getting better? Are you getting worse? Easiest way into the postseason is to win the division. Look at the division. How do we stack up? What do we need to stack up better? You probably got to go at Patrick Mahomes in waves, right?
Yeah.
You've got to get after. You've got to be able to put 30 points up against the Chiefs, or you're not going to win the game, right? So let's make sure the offense can score 30 against them, and let's make sure the defense has enough depth where we can come in waves and we can chase him down snap after snap after snap so he does not get a breather. And that's something that I believe still needs to be addressed on the edges.
Yep. And you know what? Maybe after June 1st, we'll have a little bit more clarity too. And you're 100% right. Maybe they called Leonard Floyd and they said, hey, what do you think? And he says, well, I want to wait it out a little bit. I got some other teams calling.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts here. Remember, we talked about this before. The guys like Van Noy and Morgan Fox were signed after the draft in 2022. So, Muddy, we'll end here. The owners' meetings, some interesting things going down there. Do you want to start with the special teams rule? Because it's I can't imagine special teams coordinators are too thrilled with what's going to take place this upcoming season.
Well, it certainly negates drafting Darius Davis. To use a fourth rounder and pay a premium on a returner when you recognize no matter where they drop that ball, that would be and this is where it's going to be interesting for Coach Ficken. And this is where offensive coordinators get in trouble. When you run the ball for 5 yards a clip and you're an effective offense and you're winning games, and now all of a sudden your OC wants to get a little creative and throw the ball around because, hey, man, nobody's going to be talking about me if we're just running the ball and winning games 24-18. So I got to put some sizzle in there, and that's how you end up losing games. So for Coach Ficken, it's going to be interesting to how he's going to want to approach it. Because to me, give me the ball at the 25 every time.
Yeah.
Give me the ball at the 20. I am not returning. So for people that don't know.
For you to react. League owners voted Tuesday a 1-year trial of an enhanced touchback rule that will give the receiving team the ball at its own 25 with a fair catch of a kickoff anywhere behind that yard line. So essentially, if you call for a fair catch, you're getting the ball at the 25. That's it.
And that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. You avoid, how many times do we see blocking the back, holding, all those special teams penalties, half the distance to the goal to back you up. If I am guaranteed to start my drive at the 25, let's go. That's a no-brainer. I would, unless you better be damn sure if you're Darius Davis that you're going to get that ball past the 25 and that our special teams unit is not going to commit a penalty if you're not going to wave that right hand. I don't want it brought out of the end zone. I don't want it returned. 25 is incredible field position. incredible field position. You've got so much breathing room now. So to me, if you were to poll not special teams coaches, but if you were to poll head coaches and say, do we even need to kick off? No, you don't. Just put the ball at the 25. You don't even need to kick off. You can put the ball at the 25, and that's where we're going to start our drive every single time. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I'd love to poll the special teams coordinators around the league to see how this affects strategy and just kind of how they do business, how they practice, frankly, because this is very simple. You wait for a fair catch, you get the ball to 25. Yeah. It's almost essentially eliminating the kickoff. Like, this is a 1-year trial, 100%. But this may be it for the kickoff.
100%. And it's, like I said, it's unfortunate that it comes a month after the Chargers expended a 4th-round pick on a returner and paid a premium for a returner. Yeah. Because now it's 50% of what you drafted him for is essentially gone. And look, in some games, if you get a couple kickoffs here and there and you're waving the flag, you're waving for the fair catch and you want to catch the special teams unit flat-footed, okay, let's go. Yeah, they're going to be a little flat-footed. We fair caught the last 2. Let's get after it. See what we can do. So that's part of the strategy as well. But at the same time, give me the ball at 25. I got Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Ekeler. Give me the ball at the 25. I'm more than happy to take it there.
10-play, 75-yard touchdown drive with Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
any day of the week.
Exactly. It's too easy.
The emergency quarterback rule. So this was approved too. It allows teams to play an emergency quarterback from the inactive list if the first 2 are injured during a game. So this is interesting too because the quarterback has to be on the 53-man roster, but it doesn't count towards the actives and inactives on game day. So essentially, it pays to have a third quarterback on your team if something goes down. So I wonder how this will affect 53-man rosters around the league if you have this rule in place.
To me, it's a rule that was put in place because of a high-profile game. If Brock Purdy goes down in week 16,
championship game rule.
Yeah, it's just one of those we can't do what we did in an NFC championship game and have Christian McCaffrey back there taking snaps or have to shove a guy out there with a destroyed shoulder in order to take snaps and complete the remainder of the 60 minutes that was still on the clock. I don't think it'll affect teams carrying 2 or 3 quarterbacks. I don't get the sense that'll happen. To me, it's having the quarterback on the 53-man roster sort of defeats the purpose of it. I suppose if you go into the postseason, you would maybe do that just to protect yourself, but the idea that you're going to get 2 quarterbacks knocked out of the same game, unable to return, is such a long, talk about long odds. So this to me was just, we can't afford to have that happen in the NFC Championship game again, and we're going to acknowledge, let's make sure it doesn't.
So if you use the Chargers as an example, though, essentially Chase Daniel was the primary backup last year. Easton Stick was inactive most games. Easton Stick would be dressed for games now, right? Just in case something were to happen. He'd be dressed, but would not count towards the actives, inactives, if I read this correctly. So you'd have an extra.
Herbert goes out of the game, can't return. Chase goes out of the game, can't return. Now you can activate that guy. He goes out there to play quarterback, so Austin Ekeler isn't taking snaps, or Mike Williams isn't taking snaps, or something along those. Derwin James isn't taking snaps at quarterback. That's all that's there for. The bigger, and I know you're going to get to it, Chris, but to me, so that one is just, that's the Brock Purdy rule. I don't suspect it's going to have much impact. The other one, though, is the Thursday night flex. And the fact that you can now flex Thursday night games from week 13 to 17, which is, it's crazy to me.
Let's get into that because, the kickoff thing was a safety-related thing. This, frankly, I feel like is a safety-related thing because teams can now be flexed out or flexed into Thursday night games from weeks 13 to 17. This affects the Chargers because the Chargers play the Raiders inside that window. I can't imagine a world in where they would be flexed out because it's Chargers-Raiders. Yet it's possible, and it has to be 28 days out, and I don't believe a team can be on Thursday Night Football more than twice. So the Steelers, I think, were on 3 times, so they're not even eligible to be flexed into a game during that period. But your thoughts on this? This screams to me Amazon wants it, so we got to give it to them.
100%. It's taking care of your partners that give you billions and billions of dollars. So for the Chargers are playing week 15. It's week 13 through week 17. So if the Chargers are on Thursday Night Football week 15, serves that they're not going to get flexed in week 14 or week 16. So you go to week 13, Cowboys on Thursday Night Football. I don't care how bad they are. I don't care how bad their opponent is. Cowboys are never being taken off of a primetime game. The Cowboys, the Amazon is not going to say, hey, you know what, let's get rid of that Cowboy game. That's not going to happen no matter what the records are. As I mentioned, they're obviously not going to get flexed into week 14 because they're already playing in week 15. That week they've got a home game against Denver. I suppose if you want to start flex because it's 28 days out, they could say, oh, the Raiders have 2 wins at this point. Let's flex out that Charger-Raider game from week 15. Let's put in the Chargers and Broncos who have tied records right now in week 14. Yep. So that sort of thing could happen. Week 16, they're not getting flexed into there because they've got the Peacock game against Buffalo, and they're obviously not going to NBC if the Chargers are good. We suspect both the Chargers and Bills are going to be good. They have no interest in giving up that particular game, so that's going to stay where it is. Then you go to week 17. That's where it gets interesting. To me, week 17 is the one because they could point to, well, Chargers got an extra day rest because they played on Saturday. So, or Buffalo. I look at those 2 games, Patriots at Buffalo, Chargers at Denver. These 2 teams played on Saturday. So they've got an extra day of rest before we're going to flex them into this Thursday night game. It's Chargers at Denver. So that's the one that I could see perhaps affecting the Chargers because the league could say at least one of these teams has an extra day of rest, safety is being a concern, all that sort of stuff. It's the road. The Chargers are the road team. They've got Saturday game at home. That gives them that extra day to prepare for Thursday night going to Denver. That's something I could envision. Yeah.
Playoff implications. If the Broncos are surprising with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, you got Joe Lombardi, he's the offense coordinator. You got some different ties there. Right. That could be fun. Broncos, Chargers, but I don't know. I mean, overall, I get it. I understand why they're doing it. Amazon's a new partner. Some of the games that they had were brutal, and that's being kind. Last year, do you remember the Colts-Broncos game?
Oh yeah. I mean, to me, I just feel like they've got a really good schedule this year. The Thursday night schedule is really, I mean, the games where, like if the Chargers-Broncos game were to be flexed into week 17, it's taken away Jets-Browns. Deshaun Watson versus Aaron Rodgers, a New York team. That's a good game.
At their bases
week 16, week 16 is the one everyone's pointing to. Saints at Rams. If the Rams are tanking for Caleb Williams and they are in a position with 3 games left at that point, and they're in a horse race, a little ding dong action with Tampa or whomever it may be for the number 1 or the number 2 pick, then that's where I could see, okay, they're throwing in the towel. They want Caleb Williams. We can't put this in prime time. That's where it could get flexed, and that's the one where I said the Chargers can't get flexed into there because they're already on national TV, that Peacock game for NBC to try to help their streaming service against the Bills. So that's really the only one that I see being a reality. Everything else looks like, those games are going to be played.
Yeah. The drafts in Green Bay in 2025, the San Francisco, I guess Santa Clara is getting the Super Bowl 60. And the Commanders are on their way to being sold to the Josh Harris Group and Magic Johnson. How about that?
There we go. How about that? Magic, another team to own. It's going pretty well for the Dodgers since he took over, right? It's all him.
LAFC, the Sparks. I think Magic has championships with all the teams he owns. So, don't hold your breath, Commanders fans. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. We'll keep you up to date on all things OTAs as we get towards that mandatory minicamp in June, and then it's going to get a little slow. But we're keeping our eye on June 1st and anything that could happen as it relates to the Chargers roster. For Money, I'm Chris. This has been Chargers Weekly.